My daughter, don't forget where you're from. Make us proud.
Mom, please, I'm sorry for disappointing you.
Everyone believed Amara would succeed, but no one expected how fast she could lose everything. Amara was 19 years old, standing at the school gates with a small bag slung over her shoulder. The sun had barely risen, and the campus was already alive with the chatter of returning students. Her heart pounded, and her palms were sweaty. She remembered the long nights she had spent studying at home, trying to make up for the mistakes of the previous year. Boarding school was her chance to escape mediocrity and prove to herself, and her parents, that she could rise above any challenge. Before this story goes deeper, subscribe now. Stories like this have changed lives, and you don't want to miss how this one ends. The first few days were overwhelming. Teachers spoke quickly, expecting students to understand lessons instantly, while Amara struggled to keep up. The other girls seemed confident, chatting easily about things she had never thought of before. She stumbled over her words during presentations, her hands shaking as she wrote notes in class. At night, she would sit on her narrow bed, rereading pages under the dim lights, her stomach growling because she had skipped meals to focus on studying. Despite the exhaustion, Amara refused to give up. She reminded herself of her parents' sacrifices, the long hours her mother worked at the market, the careful budgeting her father did to pay her school fees. She knew they had dreams for her, and she could not let them down. Slowly, her determination began to show. She answered questions in class, asked for extra help from teachers, and spent hours in the library after everyone else had gone to rest. The effort was not easy. Some nights, she felt like giving up, but she pushed herself. She copied notes carefully, tested herself repeatedly, and even practiced problems that had already been solved. Every correct answer felt like a small victory, and every mistake reminded her why discipline mattered. Some students whispered behind her back about how serious she was, but Amara didn't care. She was building something that no gossip or ridicule could destroy. Weeks passed, and her work began to pay off. Test results started showing improvement, and teachers began to notice her determination. The literature teacher praised her essays for clarity and depth, while the mathematics teacher gave her extra challenges, saying he could see her potential. By the end of the term, Amara's report card shocked even her parents. She was among the top students in her class. Her mother's eyes filled with tears of joy, and her father held her hands tightly, whispering how proud he was. But amid the pride and celebration, a small seed of doubt had been planted in Amara's heart. Some classmates had returned from the holidays wearing flashy clothes, carrying the latest phones, and speaking as if they were living in a world she could not yet reach. She told herself it didn't matter, that school was her priority, that success came quietly. Yet a quiet curiosity had begun to grow, one that would soon test every lesson she had learned. That night, as Amara lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, she whispered to herself, "I can do this. I will succeed. Nothing can stop me." But deep down, she could not shake the feeling that something was coming, something she could neither control nor predict. She did not yet know that the real challenge would not be exams or teachers, but the world of attention, desire, and temptation waiting just outside her dorm room. Her roommate seemed harmless, until Amara noticed something that would change everything. Amara returned from the holiday feeling refreshed and ready to continue her journey. She had spent the break helping her parents at home, revising her notes, and reminding herself why she had worked so hard. The first few nights back in the hostel were calm. She unpacked her books carefully, set her schedule, and went to bed early. Her mind was focused on classes, tests, and maintaining the streak that had made her parents proud. She didn't notice her roommate much at first. Her roommate, Zara, was the complete opposite. Bold, confident, and always smiling, she drew attention effortlessly. When Amara first met her, she barely paid attention. Zara laughed loudly, decorated the room with small lights, and played her music at night. Amara kept to her books, never judging Zara, never asking questions. She thought her focus on studies made her stronger, and she had no interest in the flashy lifestyle Zara seemed to lead. But as weeks passed, Amara began noticing subtle things. Zara's clothes changed, they were brighter, more fitted, and expensive looking. Her phone was larger, with new apps and shiny notifications. Other girls would gather around Zara's bed, asking questions, laughing at videos she shared. Amara tried to ignore it, telling herself it was none of her business, that success in school mattered more than clothes or followers. Yet, she could not stop looking. One evening, Amara stayed up later than usual, pretending to study while Zara posed for pictures and recorded short videos on her phone. She watched quietly, heart tightening, as Zara smiled at the camera, laughed softly, and interacted with followers online. Amara felt something she had never felt before, a mixture of curiosity, envy, and longing. She wondered what it felt like to receive praise without studying for hours. The more she observed, the more restless she became. Her books lay open, but she barely touched them. Her mind kept wandering to Zara's world, the laughter, the lights, the endless attention. She told herself she was only listening, only learning, and not participating, but the desire had been sparked. One question would open a door she could never close. It was a quiet evening in the hostel. Most girls had gone to bed early after a long day of classes, but Amara could not sleep. Her textbooks lay open on the bed, but she barely looked at them. Her mind kept drifting back to Zara, her confident, always smiling roommate. She remembered how everyone seemed to gather around her, asking questions, laughing at her videos, and following her online life. Amara tried to dismiss it, telling herself she had her studies, her achievements, her parents' pride, but the thought would not leave her. After hours of pretending to read, curiosity finally took control. Amara swallowed nervously and leaned closer to Zara, who was sitting cross-legged on her bed, scrolling through her phone with a quiet smile. The question trembled on Amara's lips, "Zara, how do you get so much attention online?" She tried to sound casual, but her voice betrayed her. Her heart beat faster, and for a moment, she feared Zara might laugh at her. Zara looked up, her eyes sparkling as if she had been waiting for the question. She smiled, not in a teasing way, but in a way that made Amara feel a mix of relief and excitement. "It's simple," Zara said lightly, holding up her phone. "I post videos, take pictures, and share them online. People notice, leave comments, and sometimes follow. That's all." She shrugged as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "It's fun. It's harmless. Everyone does it now." Amara listened quietly, her mind racing. She felt a strange thrill, a pull she had never experienced before. Fun, harmless, everyone does it. The words echoed in her head. Her first instinct was to shut the thought down. "I am here for school. I am here to succeed. I cannot get distracted." But curiosity whispered louder than discipline. She imagined herself receiving attention without studying for hours. She imagined the likes, the comments, the small applause of strangers online. That night, Amara tried to focus on her textbooks, but every line blurred before her eyes. She replayed Zara's words in her mind, over and over. She told herself she was only listening, only learning, and not participating, but the desire had been sparked. For the first time, she realized that there was a life outside books and grades, a life full of instant recognition, fun, and excitement. Cliffhanger. She didn't post anything yet, but the first spark of temptation had been lit, and nothing would ever be the same again. She thought a little curiosity was harmless, until it stole hours from her life. The days after that quiet conversation with Zara were strange for Amara. She tried to focus on her books, but her mind kept wandering. In class, she found herself staring out of the window, thinking about Zara's videos, her outfits, the attention she received. Even when the teacher asked a question, Amara sometimes hesitated, replaying the images she had seen in her head. It was subtle at first, just a second or two, but she noticed it, and it made her uneasy. At night, Amara began opening her old phone quietly, pretending to check messages. Instead, she scrolled through Zara's social media, observing videos, pictures, and posts. She told herself it was research, that she was simply learning how people gained attention online. But every glance left her heart racing, her mind hungry for the excitement she had never experienced in the library or classroom. Her first attempts to resist failed. She would close the phone and pick up her textbooks, only to reopen it within minutes. Sometimes she caught herself smiling at Zara's content, imagining herself in those videos, laughing, dancing, admired by countless strangers. Her heart ached with both guilt and longing. She told herself, I am still a good student. I won't let this distract me. But the distraction was already growing roots. Even during study hours, Amara's mind wandered. She would solve one math problem, then pause to picture the kind of outfits she could wear for photos, the angles, the captions she could write. Her once perfect notes were now messy, her essays lacked the careful polish she used to give them. Teachers began noticing minor slips, she answered questions more slowly, sometimes forgot small details, and occasionally came late from breaks. At first, they said nothing, but Amara could feel their eyes, sharp and questioning. Yet, despite the creeping distraction, she tried to cling to her discipline. She studied late into the night, copied extra notes, and kept reminding herself of her parents' pride. But every night, after lights out, she would lie in bed, staring at her ceiling, imagining what it would be like to post just once, just a small picture or short video. The thought no longer scared her as much as it tempted her. It seemed harmless, until that one post changed everything. It happened one quiet evening, long after lights out in the hostel. Amara lay on her bed, her textbook stacked beside her, barely glanced at. Her heart pounded as she stared at her phone. Her curiosity, which had been quietly growing for weeks, now roared like a fire she could no longer ignore. Just one post, she told herself. Just one. I will delete it tomorrow if I don't like it. Her hands shook as she opened the camera app. She adjusted her hair, tried different angles, and hesitated every few seconds. A part of her screamed that this was wrong, that she should be studying for the test tomorrow or finishing her assignment. But another part, the one that craved attention, admiration, and excitement, pulled her closer. Slowly, almost trembling, she took the photo. It was simple, a small smile, nothing extravagant. She edited it lightly, added a caption, and finally pressed post. The first likes came slowly. 1. 2. Then more. Her chest tightened with an unfamiliar thrill. Each notification felt like a tiny explosion of pride and excitement. Comments popped up, beautiful. Amazing smile. You look so good. Amara's hands flew over the screen, checking, rechecking, counting each one. She felt powerful in a way she had never felt from acing a test or receiving a teacher's praise. The hours passed unnoticed. Her book sat untouched. When she finally looked at the clock, it was past midnight. Her head throbbed with a mixture of excitement and guilt. She knew she had crossed a line, yet the thrill was irresistible. Every time a new like appeared, her heart raced, and the shame she felt almost disappeared. She whispered to herself, just one post, it's harmless. But she did not realize how quickly one post could become many, and how fast the harmless spark of curiosity could turn into a consuming fire. The next day in class, Amara tried to focus, but it was nearly impossible. Her mind drifted to the post, to the comments, to the likes that had kept popping up all night. When the teacher asked a question, she hesitated, replaying the previous evening in her head. A small panic rose in her chest. She had started a journey she could not stop. Yet, she could not help but feel a tiny thrill at the secret, knowing no one in class suspected what she had done. What starts online never stays online, sometimes it reaches the real world. After her first post, Amara felt a new kind of energy. The thrill of seeing likes, comments, and followers grow was addictive. But soon, online attention wasn't enough. Zara invited her to a small party, just a friend's birthday celebration in a nearby town. At first, Amara hesitated. I shouldn't go. I have classes tomorrow, assignments to finish. Her heart raced with worry, but the other part of her, the part that had felt alive for the first time while posting, whispered, just one night. No one will know. The night of the party, Amara dressed carefully, choosing an outfit Zara suggested. It was bolder than anything she had ever worn before, tight, shiny, eye-catching. As she looked in the mirror, she felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. Could this really be her? The girl who once studied late at night, who feared failure, who dreamed only of her parents' pride. She took a deep breath and told herself, It's just one night. Just one. At the party, Amara's world exploded. The music was loud, the lights bright, and the laughter constant. Boys smiled at her, complimented her, and even asked her to dance. The attention was intoxicating. She laughed more freely than she ever had at school, feeling admired and wanted. It was thrilling in a way that books and grades never were. For the first time, she understood why Zara loved this life. The world outside her textbooks felt alive, exciting, and limitless. But the cost was already visible. She missed classes the next day because she had stayed out late. Assignments that were due were turned in late, some forgotten entirely. Teachers frowned, and whispers started circulating among classmates. Amara tried to rationalize it. I can still catch up. I am still smart. One night won't change everything. Yet deep down, she knew she was sleeping. Her carefully built reputation, her disciplined routine, her parents' pride, all were beginning to fade. The thrill of attention kept pulling her further. More invitations followed, club nights, small parties, gatherings with boys who liked her photos online. Every event was another post waiting to be made, another story to tell her followers. Amara's world was now split in two, the disciplined student she had been and the social media-driven girl she was becoming. And with each night out, the line between responsibility and temptation grew fainter, until she could barely see it at all. The life she wanted was finally here, but it came at a price she didn't see coming. By now, Amara was no stranger to the rush of attention. Parties, boys, online likes, it all felt thrilling, irresistible. But slowly, the cost began to show. She arrived late to classes, her uniform often messy from late-night events, and her once perfect homework was now rushed, incomplete, or missing entirely. At first, teachers were patient, thinking she had simply become tired or distracted. But as the days passed, their patience wore thin. Her grades, which had once been a point of pride for her and her parents, began to drop. If this story is already touching you, don't forget to subscribe. A literature essay, which she would have written with careful detail, now felt sloppy even to her own eyes. Amara tried to justify it. I'll catch up, I'll work harder next week. But each excuse was swallowed by the sinking feeling that she had already lost ground she couldn't recover. Even worse, her classmates began noticing the change. Some whispered behind her back, others shot her looks of concern or disappointment. Amara could feel the whispers even when she pretended not to. She had once been admired for her intelligence and discipline, the girl everyone respected. Now, some looked at her as if she had traded ambition for fleeting fun, for parties and attention that could vanish in a single swipe. The guilt gnawed at her. At night, she would lie awake, scrolling through her phone, watching her own post, seeing the likes and comments she had chased so eagerly. The thrill was still there, but it was now mixed with anxiety. What if her parents saw her report card? What if her teachers were disappointed? The very things she had once cherished, praise, discipline, admiration, were slipping, and she had no one to blame but herself. One afternoon, while trying to study, she realized she could no longer focus. Every time she opened a textbook, her mind wandered to parties, to boys' messages, to her social media notifications. She had thought she could balance both worlds, but the truth was glaringly clear, she couldn't. She had left the path she had worked so hard to build, and now she was falling, slowly but surely. Her heart sank with the first real taste of regret, though she still tried to ignore it. She left school for followers, and finally, reality hit hard. Amara's social media world had grown beyond what she could imagine. Her followers were increasing daily, comments poured in, and boys she barely knew were texting her, asking to meet or inviting her to events. Online, she felt admired, powerful, unstoppable. But in school, the world she had once dominated, grades, respect, discipline, was crumbling quietly, like sand slipping through her fingers. Her parents had come for a visit the previous weekend. Amara had dressed carefully, put on her brightest smile, and hid her exhaustion from late nights online. They congratulated her for her achievements, praised her for her intelligence, and spoke about how proud they were. But when she finally received her latest report card, the smile froze. Her grades had fallen sharply, some assignments were missing entirely, and teachers had added notes expressing concern. For the first time, Amara felt a pit of fear in her stomach. At night, alone in her dorm, she stared at the ceiling, scrolling through her phone again. The likes and comments brought a rush, but it was hollow. The thrill she had chased for months no longer felt enough. She felt anxious, guilty, and trapped all at once. Her parents' pride, which had once lifted her, now felt like a weight pressing down. The teacher's disappointed notes burned in her memory. The whispers of classmates echoed in her mind. She realized she had been chasing something that could never truly satisfy her. Her friends noticed the change too. Some tried to warn her gently, others mocked her quietly, comparing her past diligence with her current obsession. But Amara ignored the warnings, feeling a mix of shame and defiance. She went out again that weekend, attending a party far from school, dressed more boldly, smiling for photos, posting videos late into the night. For hours, the online applause drowned out the pangs of regret in her heart. But when the phone finally went dark, she was left staring at the ceiling again, alone, thinking of how far she had fallen. That night, as she finally tried to sleep, Amara whispered to herself, "I wanted attention. I wanted admiration. I thought it would make me happy. But now I feel empty." The realization struck hard. She had traded discipline, hard-earned success, and her parents' pride for fleeting likes and shallow attention. And for the first time, she understood that social media could never replace the value of dedication, respect, and true achievement. She thought she could escape reality, but reality doesn't wait for anyone. Amara woke up that morning with a heavy heart. Her phone, which had been her constant companion, now felt like a chain. Notifications no longer brought excitement, they reminded her of the hours she had lost, the assignments she had skipped, the tests she had barely studied for. Even her friends who had once laughed with her now avoided her, whispering quietly when she passed. Slowly, the reality she had ignored for months began to settle like a storm inside her. The first blow came during morning class. Her mathematics teacher, who had once praised her brilliance, called her name and asked her to stay after class. Amara's stomach churned as she followed him to the empty classroom. His eyes, usually kind and encouraging, were sharp with disappointment. "Amara," he said firmly, "your performance has dropped drastically. Assignments are missing. You've skipped lessons. I expected better. What happened to the dedication you once showed?" Amara's throat went dry. She tried to explain, but words failed her. How could she tell him that she had traded homework for followers, assignments for parties, and sleep for attention? The excuses felt hollow even in her mind. The teacher sighed, shook his head, and handed her a note for her parents. "This is serious," he said. "They need to understand how far you've strayed." Amara nodded silently, her heart sinking. When her parents arrived the next weekend, the truth could no longer be hidden. The report card was laid before them, and their faces changed from smiles to shock. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and her father's voice shook with disappointment. "Amara, is this really you?" her mother whispered. "We trusted you, we believed in you. We worked so hard to give you everything." For the first time, Amara felt the full weight of her choices. She had not only lost her own way, she had hurt those who had loved her most. That night, alone in her dorm, Amara reflected on the past months. She had started as a hardworking, disciplined girl, admired by teachers and classmates alike. But now, she felt empty, ashamed, and alone. Likes, followers, parties, and attention had replaced the life she had once cherished, but the thrill was gone, leaving only regret. She whispered to herself, tears falling softly, "I wanted to be noticed. I wanted to be admired, but I've lost myself in the process." She wanted fame and attention, but in the end, she only found regret. Amara sat alone in her dorm room, staring at the ceiling as the sun dipped behind the horizon. The silence felt heavier than any party, louder than any applause, and colder than any night out she had ever experienced. The phone that had once brought her endless excitement lay beside her, dark and lifeless, as if judging her. For the first time, she could see clearly how far she had strayed from the girl who had once been disciplined, proud, and full of promise. Her thoughts drifted back to her first day at school, to the nights she had studied under a dim lamp, to the proud smiles of her parents when she topped her class. She remembered the teachers who had praised her essays, the classmates who had admired her dedication, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had earned every success honestly. Now, all of that felt distant, replaced by empty notifications, shallow compliments, and nights she could not remember clearly. The guilt hit hardest when she thought about her parents. They had worked tirelessly to give her opportunities, sacrificed their own comfort for her education, and trusted her to make good choices. And she had let them down, not by failing entirely, but by trading her future for temporary thrills. The weight of disappointment pressed down on her chest like a stone. She could feel the sting of regret in every thought, every memory, every beat of her heart. Even the social world she had once chased felt hollow now. Parties were no longer fun, likes no longer thrilling, and messages from boys who once admired her now seemed meaningless. The attention she had craved so desperately had vanished, leaving only emptiness in its place. She realized that she had been chasing shadows, admiration without substance, fame without meaning, pleasure without purpose. And the truth was clear: no amount of social media followers could ever replace discipline, respect, and true achievement. As she sat there, tears running silently down her cheeks, Amara whispered to herself, "I wanted to be noticed. I wanted to be admired, but I lost the only things that truly mattered." That night, she vowed to change, not for the followers, not for anyone else, but for herself. She would rebuild her life slowly, step by step, learning to value hard work, respect, and discipline over empty thrills. Though the regret would linger, she knew this lesson was worth more than any number of likes, followers, or parties ever could. If this story taught you something, subscribe to this channel. More real-life lessons like this are coming, and one of them might change your life.